We have been talking about inflation on some previous videos. Today we're going to be talking about used cars. Now, anyone that's been out there trying to buy a used car or a car in general lately has certainly seen prices skyrocket. We've got some phenomenal data for you today. We've got the Fed Chair Jerome Powell going on record talking specifically about used car prices, what the market's looking like, how that's going to relate to inflation. Excited to share with you guys. Welcome to the VIP Financial Education YouTube channel, where we help you go further, faster financially. I'm your host, Michael Matthey. New data released on Friday, in fact of last week, shows that there was a 1.3% drop in wholesale pricing on used cars in June, which is the first decline in pricing according to Manheim, who is the largest auctioneer of used car vehicles in the United States. The decline came as record high prices and tight inventory dropped sales year over year by 11%. Now, prices were still up year over year by 27%. What does that mean based on inflation? What the Fed's telling us out there right now, what that transitory inflation is going to look like? We're going to dive into that here shortly. Retail prices typically lag by 1 to 2 months from the car dealer to the consumer. So, if that were to hold true here, the consumer should ultimately start seeing a relief in these prices here over the next couple months, which would be a phenomenal thing if you're out there in the market today or soon to be in the car market. And according to Jonathan Smoke, who is the chief economist at Cox Automotive, the second quarter was certainly one for the vehicle market record books, but we're already transitioning to yet another chapter in this saga, what we can tentatively call a post-peak demand period. Now, used car prices have soared due to a global chip shortage on new cars, therefore making the used car something that is much more desirable. Obviously, the demand for those is through the roof. People are paying. I've got a buddy out in Los Angeles right now, and he put a joke on social media. I thought it was a joke, and it was almost $6 a gallon for gas out there. Gas has gone through the roof. Obviously, the housing market is at peak levels right now, and the new and used car market is doing the exact same thing. So there's certainly a correlation across the board here. Additionally, let's take a look at rental car companies who have typically been a seller. Now, they'll bring in their fleet, they will use them for a certain amount, and each one of them has their own kind of benchmarks and whys and wherefores. How many miles do they keep a car in their inventory before they ultimately start selling off their fleet through an auction like a Manheim, for example. A lot of them have direct relationships with major car dealerships across the country, but quite the contrary now. They're not a seller, they're actually a buyer. So normally it's auto dealerships out there or kind of private wholesale individuals that are out there going to the auctions to try and buy up these vehicles. Well, now the rental car companies are out there in that same buying pool because a lot of them did sell off inventory during the pandemic simply to keep the doors open. And that was probably a smart play on their part. Well, now they're trying to scramble and trying to play catch up. I don't know any of you that have been out there trying to rent a car recently. Guys, it's slim pickings, and unless you're getting out there months in advance, the likelihood of even securing a rental car right now are very, very slim. I utilize Enterprise when I travel, and I've got a great business relationship with them. We rent cars from them all the time when folks come into our Jacksonville, Florida corporate office for training. And out there right now, it is really just hard to even get one vehicle, let alone 5 or 10, which we would normally get in a week's span of time. Specifically right now, it's all about supply and demand. And here's a quote from Jerome Powell, who's the Fed chair. The conditions created a quote-unquote perfect storm of very strong demand and very limited supply. Now, it doesn't take rocket science to understand how supply and demand works, but it's always interesting when someone like the Fed chair goes on record and really just calls the whole thing out. That's why I wanted to share that really small quote with you. Just falling in line with that inflation, a 7.3% increase just in May alone has accounted for 1/3 of the core increase in national inflation. So used car price increase of 7.3% in the month of May accounted for 1/3, 33% of core inflation increases across the United States. And used car prices surged 10% in April. And this increase was instrumental in the used car prices being the highest that they have been percentage-wise in nearly 2 decades. Now, there is some evidence out there that supply is starting to at least catch up with demand. Now, it's going to take a little bit before they kind of correct themselves and really balance themselves out. But obviously, as supply does start to catch up with demand, there is going to be some relief from some of these astronomically high prices. And again, according to Smoke, new car inventory as of June 20th was down 65% compared to 2019, with the number of days supply down similarly. However, the number of days supply increased slightly week over week. All of this suggests Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell's prediction that prices would reverse over time. That may come true. And although even Powell admits that that timing is uncertain, guys, again, Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, a very strong economist in my opinion, they don't even know what's going to happen here over the next handful of months and obviously handful of years. And according to the Bureau of Labor, the cost of previously owned sedans, pickups, and sport utility vehicles soared 10% in April. Statistics like this, that's the fastest climb ever in data that goes back to 1953. It accounted for more than a third of the 0.8% increase in the consumer price index, which was 4 times the level economists estimated. And with fewer new cars being made right now due to a global shortage in semiconductors, obviously wholesalers, consumers, rental car companies themselves have obviously gotten into the used car market very heavily in order to get the wheels that they need in order to survive, of course. And as a result of that, in April alone, used car prices are up 54% year over year, again, according to Manheim, who's the largest auctioneer of vehicles in the United States. Also, again, linking this back to the pandemic, people are going on road trips now. They're utilizing their personal vehicles more as opposed to public transportation. Most analysts feel that because of that, it is kind of transitory, post-pandemic. With those road trips, for example, people are, kind of sticking close to their own family. They're taking these road trips. They're taking those types of vacations rather than flying on planes. I do a lot of flying. I hate it at this point. If I can drive somewhere right now, I'm certainly doing that within reason. And according to the labor market, just last Thursday, there's a new report saying wholesale prices rose a higher than expected 0.6% in April, driven by escalating food costs. The increase in the producer price index, which measures inflationary pressures before they reach consumers, was double the 0.3% gain that economists had been forecasting. The increase reported, obviously by the Labor Department, was also a decrease from the sizable 1% advance in March. Over the past 12 months, wholesale prices are up 6.2% on automobiles, the largest advance since the data was first calculated in 2010. Now, again, according to Jerome Powell, they're simply saying that this is just a kind of post-pandemic phenomenon, if you will, as the economy is starting to open back up, and it will revert back to normal levels. Obviously, that remains to be seen. But again, guys, and we've done videos on that before, definitely you want to be aware of what's going on with inflation right now. Obviously, inflation has been blamed on steep declines in the stock market. You can take a look and see kind of the trends there, and people are nervous that ultimately the central bank is going to be forced to raise their interest rates, obviously, to keep up with inflation. We did a video. We're going to go ahead and drop a link on that. There's got to be some correlation with that. Inflation can't go through the roof and keep these all-time interest rates. They're already starting to go up. Just on mortgage interest rates alone, it was about 2.75% was the best rate that you could get. I think as recent as 30 days ago. Right now, it's sitting at 3.25%. We've done videos on what that simple 0.5% increase in mortgage interest rates is going to do to your ultimate payment on a 20 or a 30-year AM. Bottom line, guys, right now there's just simply not enough used cars to go around. Supply on new cars obviously has not caught up yet. There's a limited amount of used car vehicles. It's forcing people to overpay. If you are in the market for a used car, if it's not an absolute necessity right now, I would certainly encourage you to kind of play that waiting game, wait for these prices to kind of balance out some. We talk about, buying real estate right now at the top of the market. I'm always going to encourage people, if they can, to not overpay for that. Obviously, used cars are going to be the same now. It's not quite the same monetary commitment, but math is math. So I'm not going to overpay. I don't care if I'm buying a widget or a used car or a house. I'm a quite fiscally conservative individual. So for me, I would rather play that waiting game, wait for prices to adjust based on that. Some people don't have that luxury though. If you have a car that has broken down, you've got a teen that is now driving that needs that new vehicle, so you're not having to drive them all over town for all their sporting events, et cetera, extracurriculars. Some people have to force their hand right now, and they may ultimately overpay. The good thing about buying used cars is even if you're overpaying a little bit for them, not significantly, some of these numbers are astronomically high. So certainly go out there, do your research on used cars before you just pull the trigger on them. But fortunately for used car buyers, that depreciation mostly happened to the original buyer when that was a new car. So the minute they roll that car off the lot, obviously it immediately begins to depreciate. If you come in and you're the second or the third owner on that, the significant portion of that depreciation has already happened, so you're not quite in as tough of a spot. When you go to sell or trade in that car, obviously it's going to have depreciated a little bit more, but the vast majority of that depreciation has already happened before you got your hands on that used car. And again, if you can wait, I'm certainly going to recommend you do that. We're always going to encourage people to go out there and do their own research. I had fun researching this one with our team. We're always going to try and bring diverse opinions on here, different types of quotes, and different topics. It's not always going to be real estate, for example. It's not always going to be banking or debt weapons. Used cars was one that we thought was super relevant right now. If you're out there in the used car market, obviously this one would really hit home for you. As always, guys, we're going to encourage you to go out there, do your own due diligence, do your own research. We're going to continue to read the tea leaves on your behalf and bring relevant articles like this, relevant topics like this to you. If you want to hear more like this, go ahead and smash that thumbs up below. That helps out our algorithms. If you are a subscriber, thanks again for joining us. If you're not, please subscribe. We're always looking for new, fresh eyeballs on the channel. And go ahead and hit that bell notification below. That's going to alert you as we bring new relevant content here on the VIP Financial Education YouTube channel, one of the most trusted channels on YouTube, talking all things credit, capital, and cash flow. Until next time, thanks for joining us, guys. Take care and make it a great day.